Hey, how's it going guys? Nate here with my For Honor review, the great big competitive hack and slash released by Ubisoft of Valentine's Day last week. And this game has proven to have benefited from an exceptional marketing strategy of employing beta tactics, as Ubisoft likes to do with most of their games. However, does this reflect the product itself? It got a lot of hype pre-release, but does it stand up now? The pinnacle question we're going to be trying to answer today. Beginning with the nitty-gritty of performance, all I must say is wow. With dozens upon dozens of AI running around campaign maps, I am shocked to see this game hold up 1080p, 30 FPS relatively consistently throughout playing it. Stutters were never at all a problem, and despite these great sieges and battles, the game and its engine have held up remarkably well in comparison to other titles of the day on console. In addition, the visuals are impressive, but not inherently stunning when you take into account other games on the market currently. They're definitely a step above average, but to call them revolutionary or some of the greatest we've ever seen, I think would certainly be an exaggeration. But what you could argue to be groundbreaking is For Honor's combat system. Currently, there are 12 heroes in which you can play as, each with their own unique attributes and stats that will assist or hinder them in various aspects of combat. The heavy Lawbringer is going to have a lot of difficulty blocking from a small, swift samurai, but has a lot more health and can take more damage to compensate for that. And recognizing relationships like this is key to succeeding with For Honor's combat system, which is certainly one of the better ones we've seen. You need to know when to block, parry, dodge, counter, shove, and hit, all while balancing a variety of other meters. Needless to say, this makes 1v1 multiplayer combat some of the most fun I have had in a very long time. When you engage in combat with another hero or player, the game becomes less like this third-person hack and slash we all think it to be, and something more with the complexity of Tekken. However, that depth and articulation in combat quickly breaks down when you're pitted against more than one enemy in multiplayer combat. You could be among the greatest players in the world at For Honor, but due to a clunky lock-on system, if you ever find yourself trapped up against even two low-skill players, you are going to have a very serious problem. As a result, in multiplayer modes with more than one player per team, expect victory to generally favor the side with the better communication skills. And if you're a solo player, that means multiplayer modes are generally going to be very, very frustrating for you if you're not playing a 1v1. Now that's not to say duels are the only modes worth playing. When you can get a good team together, most of the modes are fairly enjoyable. Deathmatch is what it sounds like, as teams compete for the most kills. In Dominion, players jockey to control specific victory points, almost like a game of domination or conquest in Call of Duty or Battlefield. Strangely enough, on the multiplayer overview screen, you'll also find a tab marked Events, which currently right now is grayed off, but will likely lead to some other things down the line in the future. But this does bring me to my next point, the multiplayer overview, which showcases territory controlled by each of the three factions. When you load up For Honor, you'll be prompted to select a faction to play for. You have the Knights of the Blackstone Legion, the Empire of the Dawn Samurai, the Vikings, and once you select your faction, you will be playing and representing them throughout your multiplayer experience. Now, it's important to realize that once you pick a faction, that does not limit the heroes you can select. Meaning you can select the Knights of the Blackstone Legion as your preferred faction in multiplayer, but you'll still be able to play as a samurai in team deathmatches and duels and whatnot. So it doesn't exactly limit any sort of gameplay experience you'll be seeing, it just dictates who you're fighting for and whose territory you're trying to take or defend. Now back to that strategic map which shows you your territory. In essence, the core of For Honor is the more multiplayer matches you win, the more land your faction either gets to keep or take from somebody else's faction. The multiplayer map is infinitely more elaborate than how I've just described it, and I recommend you take a look at some more YouTube tutorials to figure out how this thing works in total, because if I were to describe the entire thing, I'd probably fail, and this video would be a lot longer than I intend it to be. Just keep in mind, you're part of a faction, and your performance will impact how your faction does. Now, there are thousands upon thousands of people playing, so your impact probably won't be significant, so don't feel too bad if you don't perform pretty well, but you know, you're still there, you're still doing something. I think that's pretty cool. On to the story, and while this game does certainly convey a heavy multiplayer focus, I thoroughly enjoyed For Honor's campaign, which tells the tale of the three factions, the Knights, the Vikings, and the Samurai, all on the brink of war with each other, as a knight by the name of Apollyon attempts to manipulate each faction into constant conflict. And throughout the campaign, you'll get the chance to try out various different heroes and learn a bit on how they play. And I personally grew attached with many of the characters throughout playing through this story. I'd catch myself getting worried when I thought a certain character was going to get killed, or hoping another one doesn't turn on me. Furthermore, the missions definitely felt extremely well crafted, typically being centered around massive sieges or battles, with seemingly endless hordes of AI for you to butcher endlessly. However, while the atmosphere of the missions felt brilliant, the gameplay not so much, and it began to grow rather monotonous. Despite this excellent combat system, after a few hours, fighting similarly crafted, very predictable enemies over and over again just got dull and bland. When you're fighting players, it's different. They're unpredictable. They have a mind of their own. but the AI attack in a sort of pattern that gets very, very easy to predict and counter. Occasionally, yes, there are these boss fights that spice things up a bit by adding some levels of challenge, but nothing on the level of Dark Souls by any means, and the satisfaction of slicing enemy grunts to death eventually waned on me. So just keep that philosophy in mind. While the campaign storyline, in my opinion, is very good, and for that reason alone it's worth finishing, it will get boring at some aspects, and sometimes you'll just get plain frustrated with how dull it feels. This game is a multiplayer game. You're meant to be fighting other players, not predictably crafted AI. And that sort of concludes my thoughts and opinions on For Honor. I think what Ubisoft has done with this game is continue a relative streak they may be setting following Rainbow Six Siege of competitive multiplayer-focused games that are fun to play. And they may have just laid down the foundations for a very successful franchise to be built upon in the future. Do I think For Honor is the greatest game of 2017? Hell no. I think there's going to be a lot of things that surpass this game. However, that said, I think For Honor will definitely be up there, and it's a solid, fun experience that I did thoroughly enjoy. I'm not going to rate this game by a specific number, because I feel as though those may be getting inaccurate. So just know, if you got a group of friends playing this game and you're thinking about joining them, by all means, do it. You will have a lot of fun. If you're a solo player, be a bit more cautious, but honestly, it's still an enjoyable game, and the campaign's still pretty fun, and you'll be able to get a good amount of content out of duels alone. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to hit that like button down below, dislike if you did not enjoy the video, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Peace out, everybody.